You are absolutely not going to believe this, guys. This is the story of a homeowner, Mark, who dared to install a custom artisanal cedar gate on his property, a gate that one woman, one self-appointed tyrant named Patricia, decided was an affront to her highly refined aesthetic sensibilities. She weaponized the HOA, she weaponized the police, and she thought she had him dead to rights. But what she didn't know was that when the patrol car pulled up, the officer who stepped out was Mark's own brother, Captain Rick the Hammer Harrison, who had a devastating file on her years of code violations that had been simmering on a back burner. Her petty little call didn't just backfire. It triggered a complete, irreversible, and publicly shaming systemic collapse of her entire tyrannical reign. This is the definition of instant karma. But before we dive into this absolute cinematic masterpiece of a suburban meltdown, do me a massive favor. Smash that like button until your thumb hurts. Subscribe right now and hit that bell so you don't miss any of the other high-stakes HOA drama we've got brewing. We are on the road to 1 million subscribers, and every single like brings us closer to exposing the next neighborhood bully. Let's get into Chapter 1. Welcome to Willow Creek Estates, a neighborhood that looks pristine, but whose manicured lawns hide the soul-crushing bureaucracy of its HOA, ruled by the iron, impeccably manicured fist of Patricia Vance. Patricia wasn't just on the board, she was the board. Every code, every bylaw, every architectural review was filtered through her highly subjective, deeply self-important opinion, and her opinion, as we'd soon learn, was lethal. Our protagonist, Mark, was a successful, quiet carpenter, a man who appreciated craftsmanship and privacy. He lived in a corner lot that boasted an ancient, crumbling chain-link fence, an absolute eyesore he'd inherited. He decided to replace it with something beautiful, a custom-designed, horizontal slat cedar privacy gate, stained a rich, dark walnut. It was elegant, it was modern, and it was gorgeous. He had submitted the plans, received the standard boilerplate approval from the HOA's administrative assistant, and had his masterwork installed. The problem? Patricia had been on a 2-week cruise and hadn't seen the approval or the installation. The moment she drove back into Willow Creek and saw that dark walnut masterpiece, her eyes narrowed into predatory slits. It wasn't the beige vinyl prefab disaster she deemed appropriate for the neighborhood. She didn't check the file. She didn't call Mark. She went straight to DEFCON 1. Mark got his first communication, brightly colored. Aggressive notice of violation stapled to his gate itself, demanding immediate removal or repainting to an approved neutral tone, citing Article 4, Section B. All perimeter structures must maintain a unified, non-distracting aesthetic that complements the existing architectural uniformity. Mark, a stickler for procedure, calmly emailed the HOA's official address, attaching his original plans and the signed approval letter from the administrator. He thought that would be the end of it. He was a reasonable man dealing with a simple bureaucratic oversight. Couldn't have been more wrong. The next day, he found a second notice, this time taped to his front door with red painter's tape, stating, "The board has reviewed your submission and has officially rescinded the prior erroneous approval. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in fines commencing at $500 per day, payable immediately." The signature was a looping, aggressive scrawl. Patricia Vance, HOA board president. Mark was stunned. They couldn't just rescind an approval they had already granted, especially without a formal hearing or even a simple conversation. He immediately requested a copy of the board meeting minutes where this unilateral decision was supposedly made. The administrator, a young man named Kevin who seemed terrified of Patricia, nervously replied that the board president sometimes handles emergency architectural matters via immediate executive review. That's when Mark knew this wasn't about the gate, it was about Patricia's control. He sent a registered letter stating he would not comply, citing his legal right to rely on the initial approval, and that any attempt to fine him would be met with legal action. That letter sat on her desk for 24 hours. The next morning, Mark woke up to the unmistakable flashing blue and red lights of a patrol car parked right outside his cedar gate. Patricia was standing next to the officer, arms crossed, a look of smug, victorious vindication plastered across her face. Mark walked outside, taking a deep breath. Patricia immediately pointed at the gate and demanded the officer issue a citation, citing unapproved aesthetics. The officer, a young professional, quickly determined it was a civil dispute. He informed Patricia the police do not enforce HOA codes and warned her against misusing 911 again. Furious, Patricia retreated but escalated instantly. The next day, Mark woke to find his beautiful cedar gate completely covered in bright neon yellow paint. Across the top, scrawled in black spray paint, were the words, "Code compliant now." A crew of landscapers nearby confirmed the lady with the red car had told them it was primer for inspection. Mark filed a police report for vandalism, naming the landscapers as witnesses. The physical damage was extensive, requiring thousands in stripping and refinishing, but the worst was yet to come. The following week, Mark's bank notified him. The HOA, under Patricia's sole direction, had levied an emergency fine assessment of $10,000 against his property and, without any due process, placed a lien on his home, claiming the gate was an imminent structural hazard. Mark felt utterly attacked. She had moved past fines and vandalism to attacking his financial security, using the HOA's power to freeze his assets. He was now facing an immediate, crushing legal battle, utterly helpless against one unhinged woman's abuse of power. Mark was enraged, and his anger fueled a methodical counterattack. He hired Ms. Anya Sharma, fierce property lawyer. Ms. Sharma's first move was to sue Patricia personally for vandalism and property damage, leveraging the police report and witness statements. Crucially, she demanded all board meeting minutes and internal HOA communications. The key discovery came when the HOA's terrified administrator, Kevin, admitted in a deposition that the emergency executive review Patricia cited was entirely fabricated. He had been forced to sign the rescission notice. The court hearing for the lien removal was the first clash. Ms. Sharma presented the evidence of coercion. The court-admissible audio of Patricia screaming at the police and the police report detailing the vandalism, making it clear the lien was a malicious abuse of power. The judge didn't just remove the lien, he issued an injunction against Patricia and ordered the HOA to pay Mark's legal fees and the cost of replacing the ruined gate. Patricia was publicly humiliated, but she wasn't done. Days later, a different patrol car pulled up to Mark's house. Patricia, watching from her window, sprinted out, phone recording, demanding the officers cite Mark and arrest the previous officer. The door of the patrol car opened and out stepped Captain Rick Harrison, Mark's older brother, in full uniform. Patricia froze mid-sentence, the look of smug victory draining from her face as she realized the true depth of her misfortune. Captain Harrison's presence sent a clear message. Mark was protected, and Patricia was now in the crosshairs of the law. Rick was not there for the gate. He was there regarding Patricia's harassment of Officer Smith and her misuse of 911. He then dropped the nuclear bomb. The police investigation into the gate dispute led to a routine compliance check of HOA records. Rick, pulling out a massive binder, detailed Patricia's own long-term, unaddressed violations, an unapproved retaining wall, an unauthorized patio expansion, and mandatory maintenance failures, totaling over $42,000 in unpaid fines. He announced that the newly convened Patricia Less Board had voted to immediately levy all those accumulated fines, plus interest, and had placed a lien on her home for the full amount. He cited her breach of fiduciary duty for failing to enforce codes equally. He then informed her he was filing a formal police report against her for misuse of emergency services and filing a false report. Patricia stood paralyzed, financially gutted, and publicly shamed in front of her neighbors. The next day, a terse community-wide email announced her immediate resignation, citing personal reasons. The HOA publicly apologized to Mark. Mark's revenge was instantaneous and total. The fallout for Patricia was absolute. Mark's attorney relentlessly pursued the civil suit for vandalism, forcing Patricia to settle for over $50,000 to cover the replacement gate, fees, and punitive damages. This financial hit, combined with the HOA's $42,000 internal lien on her home, destroyed her finances and her reputation. Mark took his winnings and had his fence replaced with an even more beautiful, high-end mahogany gate, complete with subtle, custom uplighting. His house became the neighborhood showpiece, a constant, glowing testament to his victory. Patricia, facing foreclosure due to the liens and unable to handle the social ostracization, quietly put her house on the market. Due to mandatory HOA disclosures, the buyers were fully aware of the history of legal and police troubles. severely impacting the sale price. Patricia Vance was forced to sell her home at a substantial loss and moved out of Willow Creek Estates for good. Mark stood by his glowing mahogany gate, watching the moving truck pull away. He didn't just win a fight, took back his neighborhood, and his peaceful privacy was restored. Became the quiet liberator of Willow Creek Estates, a carpenter who brought down a tyrant. Can you believe the audacity? Calling the police over a gate and then being undone by a $42,000 lien from her own corrupt past? That is absolute, pure, distilled HOA gold. Now, what was the most shocking moment for you? Was it the yellow paint, the fraudulent lien, or Captain Rick the Hammer Harrison stepping out of that patrol car? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you don't want to miss the next epic saga of suburban tyranny. We'll see you in the next one.